Level 1. The applicant. You're 23. You just turned down a $58,000 offer from a consulting firm in Chicago. You're sitting in a subway on Constitution Avenue, eating a 6-inch turkey sub, and you're filling out the most invasive form you've ever seen in your life. SF-86, Questionnaire for National Security Positions. 127 pages. Every address you've lived at since you were 18. Every foreign contact. Every job, including the summer you spent at 16 bagging groceries. Your financial history. Drug use. And the form is clear. Lying here is worse than the fact itself. You've never done anything harder than a beer in college. That helps. You majored in criminology and Arabic at Georgetown. 4 years. You graduated in the top 12% of your class. You spent your junior year in Amman, Jordan, on a language immersion program. When you came back, your Arabic was good enough that your professors stopped correcting your grammar and started correcting your accent. You applied to the FBI in February. It is now August. This is what the process looks like from the inside. Waiting. Then a test. Then more waiting. Then a physical. Then more waiting. Then a polygraph. Then the most uncomfortable 3 hours of your life, sitting across from a machine that measures whether your body believes what your mouth is saying. The polygraph examiner is a man named Holt. Gray, quiet, the kind of stillness that comes from watching people lie for 20 years. He asks you flat questions. Did you ever steal anything? Have you had contact with any foreign intelligence services? Do you have any undisclosed financial relationships? You answer everything. You include things he didn't ask about. A distant cousin you met once in Beirut at a family gathering in 2002. You were 17. You spoke for maybe 20 minutes. You didn't know his last name. Holt writes something down. Says nothing. 3 weeks later, a letter. Report to Quantico, Virginia. October 14th, 0700 hours. You read it standing in your kitchen. It's raining outside. You think, that's it. That's the old life. Done. You don't know yet what the new one costs. Level 2. The recruit. You're 23. Quantico doesn't look like the movies. You pictured something serious and sleek. Dark suits, controlled intensity. The quiet hum of institutional competence. What you get is a converted training facility that smells like floor wax and industrial detergent, a dorm room with a twin bed, and a roommate named Garza who snores like a man twice his size, and an instructor at 0600 on the first morning who introduces himself by telling your class of 26 recruits one thing. You are not agents. You are candidates. The difference matters. His name is Farrell. 15 years in the Bureau, last 6 running new agent training. He doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. He has the particular energy of a man who has already decided exactly how much patience he has for any given situation and is simply waiting to see how fast you find the edge of it. 21 weeks, 850 hours. That's what stands between you and a badge. The curriculum is split into 5 tracks running simultaneously. Legal, constitutional law, Fourth Amendment standards, rules of evidence, federal criminal procedure. You studied some of this at Georgetown. Studying it and applying it in real time while someone is watching your hands are different things. Firearms. 4 sessions a week. Glock 22, .40 caliber. You've fired a weapon twice in your life. Both times at a range in Virginia with a college roommate. The first week your groupings are bad enough that your range instructor, a former Marine named Pasquale, says nothing to you for 3 consecutive sessions. Just watches, marks the target, walks away. By week 4 the groupings tighten. Pasquale still says nothing, but he stops walking away so fast. Defensive tactics, interviewing and interrogation. This is the one that stays with you. Your instructor is a special agent named Cross who has been doing interviews for 18 years and moves through them the way a surgeon moves through a procedure. No wasted motion. No unnecessary words. Every question placed exactly where it needs to land. He says one thing in the first session that you write in your notebook and never throw away. People lie with words. The body always tells the truth. Your job is to learn to read the space between. Arabic language application, working through scenarios, negotiations, interrogations, source contacts. Stressful in a way classroom Arabic never was. Week 7. A candidate named Whitmore doesn't show up to morning PT. By afternoon, his room is cleared out, his name off the duty board. No announcement. Training continues. You stop making friends too quickly. You ask Garza what happened. Garza says, "Psych eval." Whitmore couldn't handle ambiguity, needed answers immediately, kept pushing for resolution on scenarios that don't have resolution. Counterterrorism work, which is where you're headed, is built almost entirely out of ambiguity. Threads that might be leads, contacts that might be assets, evidence that might be enough. You operate in the space between certainty and action, and you have to be able to live there for months without losing your grip. Whitmore couldn't. Not everyone can. That's not a failure of character. It's a failure of fit. Graduation is in January, 22 of 26. Farrell shakes each hand. No speech, just a look that says, "Now it starts." You're assigned to the Washington Field Office, Counterterrorism Division, Domestic Extremism Unit. You take the Metro in, with your credentials in your inside jacket pocket. The badge weighs almost nothing. It feels like 20 pounds. Level 3, the Junior Agent. You're 24. The Washington Field Office is on 4th Street Northwest, 7 blocks from the Capitol. Inside, 1,400 agents working everything from public corruption to cybercrime to the work your division does, which mostly doesn't have a clean name. Your supervising agent is Daniel Cook. 13 years in the Bureau, last 8 in counterterrorism. Medium height, calm the way certain people are calm. Not because nothing bothers them, but because they decided a long time ago that visible agitation was a form of inefficiency. He drinks coffee with both hands, even when it's not cold. First thing he tells you? Forget quick results. Cases here run for years. Sometimes you work 18 months and nothing happens. Sometimes nothing happens because you did everything right. Your first 6 months, analysis. Documents, intercepts, open source material in Arabic that nobody else in the unit reads as fast. You write summaries. You study cases that started before you graduated high school. Counterterrorism work at the federal level is not what television made it. It's the slow construction of a picture from fragments that don't initially look like fragments. A financial transfer, a storage unit rented in cash, a phone number that appears in 2 separate investigations 3 years apart. By themselves, nothing. Combined with 40 other nothings, the beginning of something. In March, your first year, Cook takes you to meet a source. We'll call him the contact. An American citizen, Middle Eastern background, works in logistics in Northern Virginia. He's not a paid informant. He's a man who occasionally sees things, and occasionally talks about them. Voluntary source. No contract. No badge number. Just a man who sometimes calls. The meeting is at a diner in Arlington. You sit across from Cook and say nothing for 40 minutes. Your job is not the conversation. Your job is everything around the conversation. Who's in the diner? Who comes in? Who holds a look 1 second too long? Nobody holds anything too long. You drive back. Cook asks, "What did you notice?" You name 3 things. A man by the window who glanced twice, but you tracked him for 20 minutes and he was watching the game on the TV above the bar. A woman who sat with a sightline to the door, but she opened a laptop and didn't look up again. A car idling outside longer than normal. Delivery driver. Cook listens. Then, good. You were paranoid. That's right. Paranoia in this work isn't a defect, it's a tool. The only question is whether you can keep it working for you instead of against you. You'll come back to that line 9 years later. Once when it saves an operation, once when it nearly destroys one. Your first independent case arrives in September. A man in his late 30s, American citizen, starts showing up in overlapping threads from 2 separate investigations, both closed, neither conclusively resolved. The overlap isn't flagged by anyone because the 2 cases lived in different filing systems. You find it manually, cross-referencing on a Saturday afternoon because you had nothing else to do. You bring it to Cook. He reads your memo, looks at you, reads it again. How long did this take you? About 6 hours? He nods once, takes the memo, walks down the hall. 3 months later, the thread opens into a full investigation assigned to a senior team. Your name is in the originating document. Nobody makes a thing of it. The work continues. You drive home on a Wednesday night thinking about the Saturday afternoon, when you were cross-referencing files because you had nothing else to do. That's the job. Most of it is exactly that. Saturdays with files. Nobody watching, nobody waiting. You make peace with it faster than you expected. Level 4. The Operational Agent. You're 27, 3 years in the unit, 9 closed cases, 4 led independently. No trials. Counterterrorism work rarely ends in a courtroom. But 2 individuals who quietly lost their federal security clearances. One investigation that disrupted a financing network before it moved money. One source successfully developed from cold contact to active asset over 14 months. Cook moved up to headquarters. Before he left, he wrote you a recommendation. You didn't ask. You found out from the unit secretary 3 weeks after he was gone. Your new partner is Special Agent Marina Sosa, 33. Grew up in Miami, undergrad at Florida State, 11 years in the Bureau, last 4 in counterterrorism. She transferred in from the Cyber Division 6 months ago for reasons she doesn't discuss. You don't ask. In this unit, you don't ask about things people don't volunteer. Sosa works fast. Where Cook was patient and methodical, Sosa sees connections before she's finished reading the page. Sometimes it's alarming. Sometimes it saves 3 weeks. In February 2008, a signal comes in from a regional office in the Midwest. A man, we'll call him Vance, works as a mid-level contractor for a defense logistics firm in Ohio. Over the past 8 months, he's had repeated contact with individuals connected to a network that 3 separate federal investigations have touched without closing. He's not under arrest. He's not flagged. He's just present in too many places at once. Vance didn't get flagged because no one was looking at the full picture. Each investigation saw its own slice. Your job, with Sosa, is to assess what is Vance. You spend 3 weeks building his profile. Financial records, travel history, communication patterns, employment background going back 12 years. You're not looking for the crime. You're looking for the shape of a person. Whether what he presents matches what the data shows. Whether the gaps make sense. Sosa sits across from you in the file room on a Thursday night at 9 p.m., Chinese takeout going cold between you, and says, "He's not the guy." You look up. He's the access point. Someone's using him. He might not even know it. You look back at the records. Spend 20 minutes checking her logic. She's right. Vance isn't the threat. Vance is the door. Someone found a man with the right clearance level and the wrong financial situation, and the kind of loneliness that makes people say yes to things they shouldn't. This changes the entire approach. Instead of building a case against Vance, you build a case around him. Controlled contact operation. You approach Vance not as a suspect, but as a potential witness. It takes 4 meetings over 6 weeks before he starts talking. By the 5th meeting, he's telling you things he probably didn't plan to tell anyone. The network using him is small. 3 individuals. 2 of them are identified within the operation's first month. The third takes another 11 weeks. No arrests in the end. 1 individual leaves the country before charges can be filed. The other 2 are interviewed, their access is revoked, and the case is referred for continued monitoring. Vance cooperates fully. His clearance is suspended pending review. You write the final report over 2 days, 39 pages. Every decision documented, every moment where the operation could have gone differently. There's one paragraph you include at the end that isn't standard. It's about the Thursday night in the file room when Sosa looked at the same records you'd been staring at for 3 weeks and saw something you hadn't. You write, "Analytical collaboration produced a fundamental reframing of the target profile that was essential to the operation's design. Note for future operations, a second set of eyes on static data introduced at week 3 rather than week 6 would have compressed the assessment phase by approximately 2 weeks. Your section chief reads the report, calls you in the next morning. Good report, especially the last paragraph. Nothing else. That's enough. Before we go further, if you've made it this far, drop a comment with what career you want to see next. Hit that like button right now and subscribe. New story every single day. Level 5. The Senior Agent. You're 31. 12 closed cases. 3 active operations running simultaneously. You don't run surveillance personally anymore. That's what operational teams are for. Your job now is to see the whole board. In November 2009, you're invited to a coordination meeting at FBI headquarters on Pennsylvania Avenue for the first time. Not as a support agent, not as someone's backup, as a participant. 18 people in the room. FBI, 2 from DOJ, 1 from DHS. The topic is coordinating overlapping investigations that 3 separate field offices are running, without knowing it. You notice the following. Each office is doing its job correctly. Each office sees its own piece. Nobody sees that 2 of the pieces share an edge, and at that edge is an individual all 3 offices have looked at and set aside because he didn't fit neatly into any of their frameworks. You say this in the meeting, precisely, and without apology. The room gets quiet in a particular way, not hostile, just recalibrating. The DOJ representative, a woman named Aldrich, asks you to map it out. You spend 11 minutes at the whiteboard. When you're done, she says, "Walk me through your confidence level on the connection." You do. You tell her where you're certain, where you're inferring, where you're guessing, and why the guess is educated. After the meeting, Aldrich finds you in the hallway. She says, "Most people in these rooms only tell you what they're certain about. The other stuff gets left out. Then the other stuff is what breaks the case." You nod. She walks away. You'll work alongside Aldrich 5 more times in the next 4 years. It will be difficult every time, and productive every time. In March 2010, your unit picks up a thread that becomes, internally, one of the most tightly held investigations you've ever been part of. A domestic network, ideologically motivated, connected to financing that traces through 3 different states and 2 nonprofit organizations operating entirely within legal bounds until they aren't. You're put on a 5-person team, direct reporting to the deputy director. Strict internal compartmentalization. Fewer than 20 people in the Bureau know the investigation exists. 14 months. You can't discuss the case with Sosa. You can't mention it at home, where your girlfriend of 2 years is starting to ask quieter and quieter questions about what you actually do all day. You say, "Federal work. Can't get into specifics." She says, "I know." She says it with the particular tone of someone who has accepted something they didn't initially plan to accept. The case closes in May 2011. Not with an arrest, with a coordinated series of actions, interviews, financial freezes, one individual who leaves the country voluntarily once it becomes clear how much you know, two others whose operations simply stop functioning because the infrastructure underneath them has been dismantled quietly over 9 months. At the final briefing, the deputy director reads each of the 5 team members by name, says, "Good work. Nothing else." You drive home on a Friday. It's still light out. You sit in the car in the driveway for a few minutes. 14 months of work that doesn't exist in any public document, doesn't carry your name anywhere visible. You think about Cook, who left before this case started, who wrote you a recommendation without being asked. You go inside. The next case is already waiting. Level 6. The lead agent. You're 35. People know your name. Not publicly. In counterterrorism, that would be a problem. But inside the building, in certain offices, your name comes with a short, attached description. Domestic extremism, WFO, the one who mapped the financing network in 2011. That's enough. 17 years into the post-9/11 era, the nature of the threat has shifted in ways that the Bureau's organizational structure hasn't fully caught up with. Domestic cases are more complex than they were in 2005. The lines between financial crime, digital activity, and physical threat are blurrier. Cases that used to belong clearly to one unit now bleed into 3. Your job, the role you've grown into over the past 4 years, is seeing where the cases overlap. You're not running a single investigation. You're running the space between investigations. In January 2013, 3 agents from 2 different units are each working pieces of what looks, from your position, like the same picture seen from different angles. Agent Torres in organized crime, Agent Park in cybercrime, Agent Chen in your division. None of them know the others exist in relation to this. You bring them into a conference room. Put 3 case files on the table. Torres looks at Park's file. Park looks at Chen's. Chen looks at Torres's. The room goes quiet. Torres says, "How did nobody see this?" You say, "You each saw your part. My job is to see yours plus everything else. That's why I'm here." Torres nods. You watch him file that answer somewhere. The same way you filed things Cook said. The same way you filed things Cross said in a training room at Quantico 11 years ago. Knowledge in this work doesn't pass through manuals. It passes through rooms like this one. The joint operation runs for 9 months. The result? A network partially dismantled. 2 individuals who walk away from their activities following what the reports describe as voluntary cooperation. 3 others who come into clearer focus for future work. No arrests. No press release. At the debrief, your section chief looks at the coordination diagram. 3 units, 9 months, 0 jurisdictional conflicts, and says one word: clean. In counterterrorism, that word lands like applause. Level 7. The operations chief. You're 39. You have an office with a door now. That sounds small until you've worked 11 years without one. You run the operational division for domestic counterterrorism at the Washington field office. 22 agents, 8 analysts, 4 support staff. Operational budget, a number you don't. The difference between this job and every previous one isn't scale. It's a different kind of responsibility. Before, you were responsible for operations. Now, you're responsible for the people running operations. These are not the same thing. Operations fail because of external factors. People fail because of factors you might have seen coming. This is what you learn in February 2017. Agent Collins is 31 years old, 6 years in the unit. One of the best operational minds you've seen in your career. fast, composed under pressure, the kind of instinctive source management that looks like talent but is actually years of technique. So internalized, it no longer feels like technique. Collins is 17 months into a long-term operation. Complex, multi-layered, built around an asset whose access is genuinely valuable. You've signed off on every step. Every decision has been yours, as much as his. In February, the asset starts behaving differently. Shorter meetings, less information per contact. 3 possible explanations: personal circumstances, fear, or the operational nightmare. The asset has been identified and is now operating under someone else's direction. You tell Collins, "We need to pause for assessment." Collins doesn't agree. 17 months of work. The operation hasn't reached its primary objective. A pause now might signal the other side, might destroy everything. His argument is good. You know that because you made the same argument to Cook once in a parking lot in 2008 when you wanted an operation and simultaneously believed in it. You say, "I hear you." We pause. Collins walks out of your office. You don't read anger in his back. You read something harder, the specific disappointment of a person who is right about one thing and is being overruled by someone who is right about a different thing. The assessment takes 3 weeks. Result? The asset is clean. The behavioral shift traces to personal circumstances unrelated to the operation. Collins was right about the asset. You were right about the process. You call Collins in. Your read on the asset was correct. My call to pause was also correct. These are not in conflict. Operational instinct and security protocol don't compete. When they seem to, protocol wins. Not because instinct doesn't matter, because protocol protects the operation, and it protects you. Collins is quiet, then nods. Not the nod of someone who agreed, the nod of someone who actually understood the difference. The operation resumes. It closes 7 months later. Collins writes the final report himself. It's a good report. You sign it without changes. That's what the office with the door is for. Level 8. The Deputy Assistant Director. You're 44. FBI Headquarters, Pennsylvania Avenue, 7th floor. Your predecessor retired after 29 years. You sit at his desk. That's not symbolic. It's just a desk. Under your authority, all domestic counterterrorism coordination for the Eastern region. Roughly 340 special agents across 9 field offices. Operational liaison with DOJ, DHS, and the intelligence community. You attend the director's morning briefing 3 times a week. Twice a year, you testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Your name appears in public documents rarely and always in the context of official statements, never biographically. At this level, the work is decisions made without full information. You never have full information. Your experience tells you which gaps are acceptable and which gaps are dangerous. But experience doesn't give you certainty. It gives you better questions. In October 2019, a situation requires a decision within 48 hours. An asset connected to a long-running operation, an asset you don't control directly, he belongs to a joint task force, passes information suggesting a possible breach. Possible. That's the operative word. Not confirmed, not even probable. Possible. If the breach is real, 2 undercover agents need to come out, immediately. If there's no breach, pulling them now destroys 14 months of work and likely signals the other side that they've been identified. You pull every piece of available data. Sit with it for 5 hours. Talk to your senior analyst. Talk to Aldrich. She's at DOJ now, Deputy Section Chief, and she's been your professional reference point for 9 years. She's one of maybe 4 people in this city whose disagreement you take without a defensive reaction. Aldrich says, the data doesn't support a confident conclusion either way. You say, I know. What would you do? She's quiet for a moment. Then, I'd pull them. You can rebuild an operation. You can't rebuild people. You pull them. The operation closes. No breach is ever confirmed. The asset's information was either wrong or deliberately misleading. You never learn which. One of the pulled agents, a woman named Diaz, 28 years old, her second undercover deployment, comes to your office a week later. Was that the right call? You tell her what Cook told you, in different words, 11 years ago. The right call isn't the one that produced the best outcome. The right call is the one made on available information with a clear accounting of the risks that you can justify step by step. The outcome is partly luck. The decision is entirely you. She thinks about that, then thanks you and leaves. You know she'll carry that conversation, the same way you carried conversations from rooms you sat in a long time ago. That's how the knowledge moves. Level 9. The Senior Executive. You're 50. You advise at the level where decisions determine what American counterterrorism looks like in 2035. Office of the Director of National Intelligence, McLean, Virginia. Senior Advisor for Domestic Threat Integration. A title that doesn't appear in searchable government databases. The work at this level looks different from everything below it. Fewer operations, more architecture. How should the system be designed? Which threats get prioritized? Where the gaps are? You're not building cases anymore. You're building the framework that other people build cases inside of. In a meeting in March 2022, a junior analyst presents a proposal to shift resources significantly toward algorithmic threat detection, AI-driven pattern recognition across financial and communication data, at the cost of human source development. The room is receptive. The numbers look clean. The logic is direct. You wait until he finishes. Then you say one thing. Algorithms tell you what's happening. Assets tell you why. In this work, you can't operate on what without why. Because the threat is built by people making decisions, and people make decisions based on why. The analyst writes it down. After the meeting, you walk to the window at the end of the hallway. A glass of water. 2 minutes. You think about Cross standing in a training room at Quantico in 2005 saying, "People lie with words. The body always tells the truth. Your job is the space between." You just said the same thing. Different words, same sentence, 27 years later. Level 10. The end of the line. You're 54. The retirement ceremony is in a conference room on the 4th floor. Not an auditorium, not a ceremony hall. A conference room with a folding table and a cake someone ordered from the deli downstairs. Maybe 40 people, some of them younger than your tenure with the Bureau. The director says a few words. A list of operations is read. In general terms, none of the details that are still classified, which is most of them. Sosa is there. She runs the New York field office now. She shakes your hand and says, "You were a good partner." You say, "You were better." She laughs and says, "Yes, but you didn't get in the way." Torres, the organized crime agent from the 2013 conference room, is there. He runs a division in Chicago now. He finds you after and says, "I still think about that whiteboard." You nod. He means it. You can tell. Diaz is in the back of the room, the agent you pulled from the operation in 2019. She nods when you make eye contact. You nod back. That's the whole exchange. It's enough. Aldrich couldn't make it. She sent a note. You always told people what you didn't know. That's rarer than it sounds. You fold the note and put it in your jacket pocket. You drive home alone. April. Still light at 7 p.m. Washington in the spring looks almost kind. You think about Collins, the agent whose operation you paused in 2017. You never heard how it ended for him, professionally. You hope the right way. You think about Vance, The man in Ohio in 2008. The one who was the door and didn't know it. You hope he's all right. You think, probably he is. You think about Garza, your roommate at Quantico, who snored like a man twice his size. You lost track of him around 2011. You hope the Bureau was good to him. You park in your driveway, sit in the car for a while. 31 years, more than 50 cases, 0 times your name appeared in a headline. 0 times you needed it to. You did work that the country doesn't know you did. That was the arrangement from the start. You understood it. You chose it, not by accident, not by inertia. Every time there was something else on the table, you chose this. You get out of the car. The neighbor's dog is barking at something 2 yards over. Normal Tuesday evening. You were never the story. You were the reason the story didn't happen.